Water cooler, everybody. I've got 5 very dangerous words. Matter of fact, the most dangerous words in America right now, and it doesn't mean, it's not about the Biden administration. Well, in a way, it kind of is. But here they are. Can I see your papers? Think about that line. Can I see your papers? Hey, Gen Z, go to Wikipedia and Google Nazi Germany 1931 or 29 or 37. Put in whatever date you want. Look, folks, we don't say vaccine passports on this show. That's the last time you're going to hear me say passports. Vaccine papers. Is it constitutional? Is it legal? What would happen if your business came to you and said, hey, you need a COVID-19 vaccine, and you say, you know what, no, I don't think I'm going to get one. Well, can they fire you? What can they do? What could you do to fight back? Is it all constitutional? Look, I've got a lot of questions about this, so of course we go to Rick Green, America's Constitution coach and founder of PatriotAcademy.com. Rick, great to see you yet again on this show.
So I don't have to show my papers to be on the show? I can be on the show without my papers.
No, Rick, we are going to want to see your papers if you don't mind. I've got my anchor papers right here.
Yeah.
All right, so wait, there's kind of 2 issues here, right? There's the legal issues and there's constitutional issues. Why don't we go broader here and just talk about from a constitutional perspective? I don't know about all of this stuff. This just feels murky to me, but private business is different than the federal government. So where are we here exactly?
Yeah, your instincts are exactly right, man. And I was thinking, as you said, words to be afraid of. I thought you were going to give us Reagan. I'm from the government and I'm here to help, which definitely applies right now. Reagan always said those were the most feared words in America. Hey, listen, if you don't mind, let's just back up for a second. Let me say, look, medical freedom is going to be the fight of our day. Whether you can have freedom of assembly, freedom of conscience, freedom of religion, all of these things, and still have medical freedom at the same time. And so we have this principle that is now conflicting, you just nailed it, with private property rights. And that's where this real fight is going to take place, whether an employer can require this of you as an employee, whether businesses can require it for us to come in as patrons. And so if I could back up for a second, all of this right now is controlled not by the Constitution or any words or amendments in the Constitution or even by federal law, but by a Supreme Court decision that is 116 years old. Now, first of all, the Supreme Court should not be making law for America, but we're letting a case called Jacobson from back in 1905 in Massachusetts control the mindset and the attitude and the decisions being made with regard to our medical freedom. Even today, 116 years ago in 1905, there was a pastor, by the way, he was a pastor that fought against a vaccine mandate for smallpox. Now, let's also draw a distinction. This was before we had vaccines for all kinds of non-life-threatening things, everything from chickenpox to sexually transmitted diseases to diarrhea. That's the rotavirus vaccine. I mean, all of these vaccines we have today that are non-life-threatening, and we're trying to apply a Supreme Court decision that had to do with smallpox, which killed 30% of the people that got it. Now, just think about 30% of your neighborhood, 30% of your family being wiped out. That is 300 times more deadly than the COVID-19 virus. The COVID-19 virus is only deadly for 1/10 of 1%. Smallpox was wiping out 30% of the people that got it. And even in that case, the Supreme Court said at the very end of the decision, the last paragraph, they made it very clear. We are not saying that the government has the power to mandate vaccines for everyone, that there should always be exceptions that are allowed. And they specifically said a lot of people aren't suited for the vaccine. Well, when it comes to COVID-19, a lot of us are not suited for that vaccine because we're not at risk when it comes to the virus. So I could go on and on about the difference of that and now, but I think we have to have that context whenever everybody says, no, Supreme Court said that you can mandate vaccines. And by the way, all they required of the pastor was a $5 fine. They did not go inject him with the vaccine.
So this is all so fascinating. Why we have you on the show, because you really give. I mean, let's be honest. No one had that information today before they heard you say that. They're not going back 16 years ago to the Jacobson case. So,
yeah, 116 years.
All right. So Rick, you mentioned exceptions, and I wonder if this is where this is going from a private business standpoint. That we're going to have court cases and others about what qualifies as an exemption, because
right.
Because you can make the argument, I guess, that you don't want the vaccine at all, but if you can claim an exemption, I think that might be the wiggle room here. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong.
No, you're right. And I fought this battle 20 years ago. It was one of the main pieces of legislation that I fought for when I was a state rep, was to get an exemption in Texas law so that you could decide for yourself which vaccines your children were going to get. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. There are some vaccines that we give our kids and some that we don't. But we make a studied decision of each one to say, what is the risk? What's the cost benefit? How risky is it that my kid's going to get that virus or that disease or whatever it might be? And then what's the risk of the vaccine? And that's what people should be able to do. That's called freedom. That's called medical freedom. It should absolutely be that way with the COVID-19 vaccine. Now, I do have to say, David, we're going to bump up against a very important right. In fact, I consider it one of the stools of freedom. If you take this stool out, if you take this leg out from under the stool, you lose freedom, and that is private property rights. I'm really, some people might say I'm extreme on this. I think a business owner that owns that property, that starts that business, that risks their capital, that the government should not be able to tell them who they can hire, who they can fire. For any reason, you wear the wrong color shirt, I ought to be able to fire you if I want. I should be able to deny business to people that I don't want in my restaurant for any reason whatsoever, and that includes even under the Civil Rights Act. If you refuse business based on the color of the skin, we're going to picket you to the next day, and you're going to be out of business. I mean, it should be up to the business owner and the market. And I'm afraid that right is going to conflict with this vaccine papers idea, because some businesses are going to jump on board this, and they're going to require those papers for you to come in. And this is not going to be popular with all the folks out there that typically I would agree with. Yeah. But I think a business owner should be the one to make that decision, and the customer. And if the customer decides I don't want to come in, then I don't come in. And I've struggled with this, to be honest with you, bro, because I hate this vaccine paper thing. Right. I don't think it should be done at all. But if you can go down the street to a different place, then, I think that business owner should have the right. I do think there will be a legal question here when it comes to airlines and things where you can't go somewhere else, where they have essentially a monopoly with just a few players. But that's all going to get fought in the courts before this thing is over, because there is a conflict of rights here that we're going to be dealing with.
And that's why the exemption clause or whatever it is going to be so important, because then you can have it both ways. You can say, you can let the employer say, look, you got to have a vaccine, but if you can have an exemption for it, then maybe that's the middle ground. So,
and if I could say one more thing, I know you're running out of time.
Yeah.
Let's not forget, they're talking about requiring this of people where there is zero due process, zero evidence that you are a risk. It's one thing if 30% are dying from smallpox and it's all over the community. There is no evidence that I'm a threat to anyone when I step on that plane. Yep. There's no reason they should be requiring the vaccine or a vaccine paper for this particular virus.
Gotcha. Rick Ring, great to see you, sir. Thanks so much. Great information.
God bless you, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, sounds good. I'm going to geek out tonight and read the Jacobson ruling 116 years ago. Hey, honey, let's read this tonight. Back in a moment.